All right, folks, it is Veterans Day. It is Veterans Day, and I just want to again send out my best wishes to all of those who served and made the sacrifices that they've made, and the families. When we had Oliver North on the other day, he talked about his wife and how she held the family together. I mean, that's so commonplace, and we overlook that very often. We were privileged to speak to Ralph Peters earlier, and now we're equally as privileged to be joined by, of course, Major General Paul E. Vallely, Chairman of Stand Up America. General, welcome.
Well, welcome, Steve. I even put my beret on for you today.
All right, let me see. Let's get that shot on camera for the Newsmax TV, folks. I'm sure we'll get that in a second. I could see it through the window. I'm cheating. Yes, you got your beret. Well, listen, happy Veterans Day. There you are. No, that's good. I just saw it. Very good. Excellent.
All right.
So tell me, what have you been doing to celebrate today?
Well, I've received more calls today than I think I ever have from friends and families from around the country, as well as a radio show talk hosts like yourself, and I really appreciate it. It seems that many of the people out there really want to address this Veterans Day in a very serious way because of what's going on in the world. So I'm appreciative of that.
Yeah, well, what's going on in the world? I don't want to shift focus to that yet. Anyway, well, let's talk a little bit about. There was a very touching ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery today, where they honored the oldest known World War II veteran, and it was just amazing. 107 years old, Richard Overtone. I don't know if you got a chance to see that or not. Very, very moving ceremony. He's in a wheelchair. He managed to stand. He's an African American gentleman, 107 years old. Wow.
Wow, yeah, and that's just terrific when I see these gentlemen and women from World War II and how we fought that battle on two fronts and won it. It was just amazing, and it's an amazing story, and as we've preceded and evolved since World War II, since that gentleman served. We've seen so many other conflicts that we have to be appreciative of all those who have served and given their lives and their limbs for this country.
Yeah, absolutely, and there is a lot of reason for concern. Let's talk about the folks who who have served and who are dependent upon government services and dependent upon our generosity in various issues. Your fine organization and others that look to help veterans. I have some encouraging stories here about how there are businesses all over America looking to lower the unemployment rate for veterans, especially those returning within the past 12 years from service. They have a 10% unemployment rate. I also have this example of a town in California, Lancaster, California, which built a new home for a paralyzed Iraqi veteran who returned and was living in a trailer with his whole family. So there are a lot of good stories out there, but so much needs to be done.
Well, it does. Particularly, I'm concerned about some of the problems in the Veterans Administration and the cutbacks there, and the fact that we have some very excellent hospital service areas, but they're mostly located in the metropolitan areas such as Washington, D.C. and Bethesda, Walter Reed. But I'm very concerned when you get into the outlying areas, when they go back home and they don't have that kind of service and they have to travel, some cases like here in Montana to Salt Lake City, hundreds of miles to get to a VA center. And so I think we need to look at the future for these veterans, that they can get the service at their nearest hospital and show a card just the same way they would in a veterans hospital, because it's really quite devastating when you get outside, I guess, those big, large urban areas where they have the larger VA centers. So there's a problem still in disability payments. We have problems, extended family problems with PSDT, not only in the soldiers and sailors and airmen, Marines, but also in the family. And the other thing, Steve, we have the highest rate of suicides we've ever had, not only in the force, but also now family members.
Why?
So,
Why do you think that is, General?
Well, I think the amount of rotations and deployments many of these members of our armed forces have had into the Middle East. You get financial problems, you get marital problems, you get children in trouble, just the same things we see in our society, and it's happening there. But when they're separated and they don't have that cohesive family to take care of those problems, and a dad at home or a mother. This suicide rate is a real problem.
Yeah, we're talking to Major General Paul E. Vallely, retired, of course, General Vallely, chairman of Stand Up America, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I want to also talk a little bit about, there are those who say that the president really should have apologized today, and I think the president, Harry Reid, should. It's a blame game with who shut down the government, et cetera, but the fact is that the House did pass a bill that would have reinstated veterans' benefits during the course of the shutdown, and the fact is the Senate said no, and the president said, I will veto it, just as he did to kids with cancer and special needs for their hospitalization run by the government, but also the way the administration wanted to invoke the most pain possible by shutting down the Vietnam's memorial, the World War II memorial, for instance, wanted to invoke the most pain possible by shutting down the Vietnam's memorial, the World War II memorial, for instance, who say that the president should apologize for the way the veterans were treated by him during the lockout.
Well, no doubt about it. And the government never really shuts down.
Lockout.
Well, no doubt about it. And the government never really shuts down. Non-essential, you really don't need them. But the troops still are deployed. They're still in their units. And to use the sequestration and these other reasons is foolish, and it's foolish on the part of the administration. But that's what they want to do, inflict maximum pain on the people, just like shutting down the national parks. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Maximum pain on the people, just like shutting down the national parks. I mean, it's ridiculous.
All right, over to foreign policy, and certainly, you're the Syrian expert. You've been to that region. You've been to that country. You've talked to the rebels, et cetera. But I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Iran and what we have witnessed over the weekend. No deal was reached, but it looks like if it weren't for France objecting, even though John Kerry denies that today, he said the West was united. It was, it was just the Iranian government that wasn't ready to pull the trigger on a deal. But for whatever reason, it didn't happen. We're getting very dangerously close to a deal, which Benjamin Netanyahu says will be a great victory for Iran.
Well, it's actually a bad deal, and when you see Israel look at it as a bad deal, you know it's a bad deal because they're the #1 target over there. But now when you look at the Saudis and even the Egyptians, the United Arab Emirates, they don't think it's a good deal, and they live in that bad neighborhood over there. So they know appeasing to the Iranians, who have long said and been destined to place themselves as the hegemonic power in the Middle East, you can see that they're not going to back down. They already have, Steve, by the way, from the intelligence. You can see that they're not going to back down. They already have, Steve, by the way, from the intelligence, the warhead onto the Shahab-3, and I've done a test on it, but they've tested all of those components in North Korea.
Right.
So we're fooling ourselves to think that they don't even have they do not have a nuclear capability at this time. They do. So it's not a year off or a 2-year off. And Bibi Netanyahu and Israel know that. Now you're going to find Saudi Arabia, they're not going to have a nuclear development program. They're going to take cash and go out and buy it.
Right, from Russia or whomever.
That's right. Money speaks. And so they'll buy it from Pakistan or Russia. But on the other hand, Saudi Arabia knows that Russia's supporting Iran.
Yeah. No, so it's a mess. Look, this president has managed, without us firing a shot, to totally remake our foreign policy with regard to the Middle East, and to totally without us firing a shot, to totally remake our foreign policy with regard to the Middle East, and to totally screw. Last week there were reports. I actually had Judith Miller on the phone at the time that these reports were coming over, that the United States, the State Department was saying they had grave concerns, grave doubts about Assad and whether or not he's actually showing all he has when it comes to chemical weapons, and whether or not they could trust him here all of a sudden as if it's a surprise. So where do you believe we stand with that?
Well, first of all, you've got Iran and Russia standing by Assad over there. They'll never get to all of the weapons because they will conceal many of them and move them as they have.
Right, because they had they had 6 weeks, 8 weeks to move them.
Well, sure, and they just trade space for time on that. And we're so naive over there, especially Obama and our foreign policy people, and John Kerry and our CIA is basically completely void of good intelligence. So when you look at that situation in Syria, they're going to keep Assad in power. And here again, you have Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and you have Al Qaeda in there. You got a three-sided war right now. I want to make a point on that, Steve. Not only do you have Assad against the Free Syrian Army, the original Free Syrian Army that I visited with, but you have them now fighting al-Nusra and the Al Qaeda elements. So you've got a three-sided war over there, and you've got different superpowers supporting each of those three sides.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation. Listen, General, always a pleasure to speak to you, sir. We'll have you back soon. And again, happy Veterans Day to you and all of your wonderful, wonderful brothers.
Thank you, Steve, very much.
Take care. General Paulie Vallely, and of course, it's Stand Up America. Stand Up America is the fine organization that he is the chairman of. We're going to get to Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post in the next segment, so we have a couple of minutes here. I want you to hear something, and if I could find it, I will let you hear it. It's the Miley Cyrus, and I believe I do have it. All right, this is 32. You got to kind of see it as well as hear it. She won an award, an MTV award in Europe, and she comes out and she lights up a joint on stage. Because in the country that she was in, lights up a joint on stage because in the country that she was in, we did, but she did it, and here's cut 32.
All right, I don't think I'm going to be able to fit this in my purse.
That's the
award
award
she's talking about. Put that right there for right now. First, I would like to thank, of course, all of my fans, my smilers, for making this happen, and Terry Richardson for putting this together. You know, I couldn't fit this award in my bag, but I did find this. So thank you guys very much. Good night, everybody. Thank you. EMAs, thank you for having me. I love y'all so much.
Yeah, all right. So she lit up a joint. She took a drag on this cigarette, and MTV censored it. That's right. Last week we had the head of the Parent Television Council on our show, and today the Parent Television Council praised, of all entities, MTV for censoring Miley Cyrus's smoking at the European Music Awards that was broadcast on MTV. So you never know. Strange bedfellows are made, but it's good. It's good that they censored that. I mean, you know, she's just trying to make another... You know, see if this video could go viral more so than the twerking video from the last show she was on. So she's all about shock, and she's succeeding. What can I tell you? She's doing it right. Okay, we're coming back. Jennifer Rubin, and we'll talk about the president and health care and everything else that she's been writing about right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. 877 Newsmax, Newsmax TV.